Right, okay. At which point I'm going to introduce Simon Assaf, who's going to speak on Israel and imperialism. Can there be a revolution in the Middle East? Simon, 30 minutes, and I'll tell you 5 minutes before.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for inviting me. It's great to see so many people here. And it's great to see Palestine become such a central question, I think, around the world. I was going to start with describing a song that always is played in the Arab world in times like this. It's an amazing song, really. It starts with one single voice, and then the voice says, where are the Arab armies? Where are the millions of soldiers? Where is the Arab world? And this song builds in crescendo, and more people join in, and it's very rousing and quite amazing. And I hate it. I hate this song. Every time I hear the song, I want to break things in my house, because the thing about it is it's not a question of where are the Arab armies. There are no Arab armies. Arab governments do not have armies. They have security forces. And you can always tell the difference between an army and a security force by which way the guns are pointing. Armies point their guns out of their borders, security forces in towards their borders. And the idea that there'll be some mythical Arab army, millions strong, that will come to rescue the Palestinians is, of course, an old Arab nationalist myth. And as I say, beautiful song, but actually one that I really hate. The question I think the song should be about are where are the millions? Not where are the millions of soldiers, but where are the millions of dollars? Because when we talk about the Arab world, we talk about the incredible wealth that there is, a wealth that has been growing really over the last 30 or 40 years that is quite astounding. So when we look at simply the level of poverty in Egypt, or the economic collapse in Lebanon, where really are people finding really hard to eat, impossible for people in Jordan and all these countries and Sudan and so on to actually make ends meet at the end of the day. And so we ask, where are the millions? And actually, it's not mythical. The millions do exist, and we do know where they are. And just to give you a sense of it, here it is. The Qatar Investment Authority has $475 billion of investment in what? They own a majority share in Barclays Bank, Volkswagen, Porsche, Sainsbury's, Veolia. Veolia is the French company that actually we should be boycotting because they work in Israel. This is actually partly owned by the Qatar Investment Authority, as well as France Telecom and various others. Then we have Kuwait, $803 billion. This we don't know because Kuwaiti is secret, so we don't know where it is. All we do know is that 700 billion of this is in US assets. We don't know which assets they are. United Arab Emirates, $1,889 billion invested, again, in everything from Sikorsky, who make the gunships that are now dropping bombs on Gaza, to Boeing, that supplies the weaponry, makes planes also, it's not, and so on. Saudi Arabia, 837 billion. Again, huge amounts of money. And it always brings me back to the story they tell about when the Americans first arrived in the 1930s in Saudi Arabia, and they offered the Saudi king $30,000 in gold for them to exploit Saudi oil. And Saudi oil at the time, it was owned by the Arab American oil company, Aramco. Aramco was a source of super profits for the US, and all the money they made from this oil was siphoned off to the US, to Saudi Aramco now, which is owned by Saudi Arabia 100%, and is not only do the Saudis own the oil, but they own everything downstream, the production, the distribution, and so on. So the idea of the Arab world, or the Arab ruling class, if you like, being somehow junior partners in imperialism, somehow put on by colonial powers and so on, is a complete myth. These things no longer exist. The Arab ruling class is integrated into the global ruling class. And there's one thing you should know about the global ruling class: it's very multiracial. It's very open. You don't need to worry about the color of your skin or where you come from when you walk into, the Sheraton Hotel and so on. This is actually a highly integrated ruling class. And so we say, we don't need, there are no Arab armies. There is no sense in which the Arab world is gonna come to the rescue. And even if you say, okay, the Egyptian army is going to come, rolling over the Sinai desert to break the gate at the Rafah crossing to save the Palestinians. We don't even need to do that. We don't need to do that. If you want to bring European economy, if you want to bring the American economy to its knees, all you need to do is park a boat sideways on the Suez Canal. We saw that 2 years ago with the Ever Given, the big container ship that got blown by the wind and blocked the Suez Canal. Just one ship blocked the Suez Canal for, I don't know, it was a week, 10 days, and the whole world economy went into a big paroxysm. Why? Because 12% of world trade passes through the Suez Canal, worth $1 trillion. You want to stop the bombing on Gaza? Forget about the armies, forget about all the promises, simply just close the Suez Canal. We could close the Suez Canal tomorrow. Even more, even easier, simply go Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, all these countries simply turn the siphons off for the oil. You want to bring the global economy down? That's the easiest. You want to concentrate the minds of the US, of the European Union, of all the countries that are supporting this genocide inside of Palestine, then actually that's the easiest thing to do. But of course, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because they are not on the side. There's no such thing as an Arab ruling class on the side of the Arab poor. There's no such thing as the Arab ruling class on the side of the Palestinians. And even saying this seems strange to me, that somehow there'll be this Arab response. They don't give a shit about their own populations, never mind about what the Palestinians are doing. These people are highly integrated and part of a global ruling class, deep in the filth and the blood of global capitalism. So that's, I think, the important thing. This is why, sorry, a long explanation to why I hate the song. It's been driving me mad. But I think it is really important because it begins to then, I think, change the way we think. And I think we need to change the way we think about the Arab world and about the Arab working class and about this thing which says there's this kind of Arab nation and so on. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll agree with me, there's no such thing as the Arab nation. There is something called the global working class, which I hope we want to talk about. I also want to talk about imperialism. Obviously, that's the main title of the story, so it would be really important. There is a massive crisis in Western imperialism. I'll explain as briefly as best I can how this crisis is. The front line of imperialism has shifted from the Gulf. It's important, don't get me wrong, from the Gulf to the Eastern Mediterranean. And I'll tell you how that happened. The vainglorious invasion by the Bush administration of Iraq, of Afghanistan, and then Iraq were utter disasters. The attempt in 2003 to project US power to the world was shown to be wanting. Instead of them proving how strong they were, instead what happened was how weak they were. They couldn't, even though they spent $2 trillion and 20 years on Afghanistan to get rid of the Taliban, they spent all that money just so at the end of it they can surrender to the Taliban on the ground. The same with Iraq. The attempt to take Iraq and reshape the Arab world and the Middle East with the invasion of Iraq, again, ends in disaster, a complete disaster. So the front line has shifted. The front line has shifted, and you can see how the front line has shifted in the imperial rivalry. I guess there's two ways I can tell it. The first one was a kind of personal story. Because I used to work, around that time I was working for a Lebanese newspaper in Beirut. And, you know, you work at a Lebanese newspaper, you know, you're working at night and as a journal and so on. And every now and then, an embassy would send someone to, you know, do a bit of soft power stuff, shake your hands and all. Whenever the American embassy came to visit our offices, everybody in the building had to leave. Americans are coming, everybody out. The Americans were terrified of us. Whenever the Chinese came, everything was fine. The Chinese diplomats would wander around the rooms, would shake their hands and so on. No one was burning the Chinese flag. China was seen as the better option for lots of people in the Middle East. The US was seen as a power which was seeped in the blood of the region and so on. So there is this inter-imperialist rivalry that is that I saw then was starting. What we saw, I think, of the last year, I think it was about this time last year, something quite dramatic happened, which was China brokered a truce between Iran and its arch enemy, Saudi Arabia, behind the backs of the Americans. The Americans had no clue this was happening. the Chinese simply stepped in and completely disarmed, if you like, the tension that was building between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Iranian minister, the Iranian foreign secretary, and the Saudi foreign secretary simply go to Beijing. The Chinese sit them down, right, that's enough. The Americans were completely blindsided by this, and it caused this huge crisis inside of the Biden administration specifically, but inside of the US generally. Why? Because for the US imperialism, for the Western imperialism, China is the big problem. The so-called tilt to Asia, the thing the Americans fear the most is this rising power of China, what they call the Belt and Roads Project, the string of pearls, which are a huge infrastructure that the Chinese are building, the Chinese capital moving into Africa, not only just simply moving into Africa, but moving to Africa countries and saying, we will pay all your debts to Western banks and you pay us back at a lower interest rate. The Western imperialism is terrified by this sort of rising Chinese power. So that balance then begins to change. It's beginning to change now and shifting back to the Eastern Mediterranean. And you know it's shifting to the Eastern Mediterranean by what the US are building in Lebanon. The US have retreated from Iraq and are, in a sense, retreating to a certain extent from the Gulf. And they have taken a mountain just outside Beirut, close to where my village is, which is really annoying. They chopped the top of the mountain and they're building a huge embassy, so big that it's 5 times the size of the White House. And you know, and it's one of the things you look on the website and you see, oh, you know, what are they going to do with this embassy that's in a country of, you know, a few million people, in which very few American tourists in Lebanon, surprise, surprise. So why do you need this? You need this embassy. And you look on the website and it goes, oh, you know, it's a marvelous embassy. It's right next to the kind of wildlands of Lebanon. There's a pool, there's a sauna system, there's, you know, and so on. But this will be the hub of counter-insurgency and counterintelligence in the Middle East. What the US are doing is they are putting in place something that the Israelis have already started in Palestine, and I think you can begin to understand the position the US has taken with regards to this genocidal attack. It's almost sociopathic attack that's taking place on Palestine, is because we know in Lebanon we're next. We know absolutely we're next, and they're beginning to put in place the infrastructure, if you like, for spreading the war from once they deal with Hamas and they deal with the Palestinians, then they're coming for South Lebanon. No questions whatsoever about it. Everybody is expecting this. Everything is expecting this. Almost saying that there is this line now that we are going to hold. We're going to hold the line in the Eastern Mediterranean. And you really see how important this is and how much they put by the Bibi Netanyahu strategy of genocide against the Palestinians, by what they call the 100,000 tons of US diplomacy. 100,000 tons of US diplomacy is what they call the strike group that has now sailed 2 aircraft carriers, 1 nuclear-powered submarine with nuclear weapons in the submarine, as well as, of course, the British. The British have to send their little rowboat as well, and the French aircraft carrier. So now, not only in Lebanon are we looking over the border at the horror that is taking place inside of Palestine, but we know that this strike force is heading for who? Just what the Palestinians are going to do. They're already under the cosh of the hardest, most heavily armed nation in the world. Why do you need all these aircraft carriers in the Eastern Mediterranean? They need it as a projection of their power in order to intimidate Hezbollah, intimidate the Lebanese resistance, but I think also to begin to try and put Turkey in its place. And so you begin to see the ways in which the crisis of American imperialism, rather than simply the Americans losing this war, economic war with China, and therefore retreating like, dogs with their tails between their legs, they're actually more vicious, more dangerous, and more savage than they were before. So the fighting that is now beginning to take place in South Lebanon, and you speaking just over the last few days to our comrades inside of Lebanon, in this sense of almost this kind of cold acceptance that as soon as they're finished with Gaza, they're going to start on South Lebanon. And of course, how does this fit in with the kind of Israeli colonial ideology? Of course, they project, they want, and have always said that they want South Lebanon. Why do they want South Lebanon? Because the longest, the most important river in the Arab world runs, it's called the Litani River. It runs through the Bekaa. It comes from the Mount Lebanon ice melt and comes through the Bekaa Valley, which is a very fertile area, extremely fertile area, and then goes, snakes all the way to the south. They need this water, especially with the oncoming climate crisis and so on. So we know that that as soon as they finish, then they're going to come for us. But in order to come for us, they have to deal with Hezbollah, who are dug in, and so on. But Hezbollah has no way, even with all their stockpile of 30,000 rockets and so on. There's no way we can deal with not only the Israelis but this American battle group, this American battle group that is coming. And what is the strategy? What is the strategy? Why are the Israelis doing what they're doing? Why is it that they're not only bombing? I mean, fair enough. In a war, you bomb enemy troops. Why are you bombing? Why we destroyed the most important university in Gaza? Why are you destroying hospital after hospital? Why are you destroying the electricity system? Why are you destroying? Why are you firing white phosphorus onto fields? Why are you doing? Why is this? What is going on? Is it simply that the Israelis have completely lost their minds? Actually, it isn't. It is something that they have told us about. They told us about because they tried it in Lebanon in 2006. And I'm going to quote you. I don't really like quoting from Israeli generals. I'm going to quote you from this Israeli general who was the commander in the north at the time, the 2006 war, which was the last time the Israelis attempted to subjugate Lebanon. And they said this. He said this. This is Ghazi Azakot. He said, our basic strategy is this. Harming the population is a central tenet of all Israel's war. Kill and maim as many people as possible with little or no risk to Israeli soldiers. Once the people were terrorized, then they would abandon the resistance or act as a restraint on it. These mass bombardments were unleashed on every village from which shots were fired in the direction of Israel. We will wield disproportionate power against them and cause immense damage and destruction. From our perspective, these neighborhoods and villages are military bases. This isn't a suggestion. This is a plan that has already been authorized. It's called the Dahiya doctrine. Dahiya is, in Arabic, means suburb, but in Lebanon specifically means the southern suburbs of Beirut. The southern suburbs of Beirut are mainly Shia Muslim. They are mainly the people who came, who abandoned over the years the south and moved to the edges of the southern edges of Beirut, if you like. And the Dahiya doctrine, when unleashed in 2006, was really quite simple. It was absolutely horrific. Seeing the destruction, I came in the day after from Syria to Lebanon, seeing the level of damage. They demolished every building they could. They hit this neighborhood, probably the size, a quarter the size of Hackney, I should imagine, and leveled almost every building inside of it. And in the south, they attempted to take on street fighting with the resistance. With the resistance, we mean Hezbollah, which is the Shia party, but also what we know as the Communist Partisans, because the Communist Party has deep historical roots as well. So they took on Hezbollah and the Communist Party partisans in the south, and they found something they didn't like. The first thing they found was that instead of trapping the Shia in South Beirut, the Shia in South Beirut fled to mainly, but not exclusively, to the Christian areas of East Beirut. And this was very significant because these were areas that had been at war for 30 years. I'm from Christian East Beirut, and since between 1975 and 1991, I could not go across the street to the other neighborhood. That's how deep it was. A quarter of our population died in this war. It was the most brutal sectarian war. In 2006, all the Christians opened their houses for the Shia. It was an amazing moment, if you like, of solidarity. It was this popular solidarity that meant the Israelis could, yes, nothing we could do about it. They could bomb building after building after building, but these buildings were empty. We can't do that in Gaza. The Dahiya doctrine in Gaza is completely different. Dahiya doctrine in Gaza is there's nowhere for the Palestinians to go. So they forced almost the entire population of Gaza into the south, and they're just hitting with these what we call the vacuum bombs and so on, which are these tremendously savage shells, killing, wiping out whole families. Families of 45 people, 5 generations, time and time again. Thank you. Are doing it. So in 2006, we could absorb, if you like, the population, and we could strip the Israelis of this military advantage. We were able to do that in 2006 through a basic act of solidarity. It was actually a really amazing moment. And then when they put the Israeli troops on the ground in the south, they got absolutely mauled by the fighters of Hezbollah. Why? And the Israeli general put it really well. He goes, you know, we haven't fought a ground war since 1982, the invasion of Lebanon. Any serious ground war since 1973, which was with the Egyptian army. Where are all our elite troops? They're all in Thailand getting stoned. But actually, it's true. If you've been to Thailand, you find it's full of Israelis getting stoned. And when they went to try and find the troops to be able to take on the partisans and the Hezbollah fighters, they found actually they came up worse for wear. And we went down, I think, 2 or 3 days after the ceasefire. We drove with an aid convoy to one of the frontline villages, chatting with some of the families, like, where did you go? Where were you? And everyone was just pointing down. Underneath this village are networks of tunnels, hundreds of miles long. So everyone was going into the tunnels, hiding in the tunnels, and then popping out and attacking the Israelis. And they found something really quite horrible. The resistance lost 11 fighters in this battle. There's a village called Ait al-Shab. The Israelis lost 50. These are not the numbers the Israelis like. So the idea that they were sending ground troops became something they didn't want to do. So the Dahiya doctrine now is the doctrine of simply demolishing completely. And underneath Gaza City are tunnels said to be 500 kilometers long. They've been building them for the last 75 years, 80 years, who knows? That if you were to draw a straight line, you could go from here to Glasgow. That's how long the tunnel system is underneath Gaza City and the Gaza Strip. So the fighting that is now taking place inside of Gaza, and some of the footage coming out shows actually the Israeli troops really not up to it, because a lot of them expect to go do 2 years military service, shoot a few stone throwers in the knees, and then go off, get stoned in Thailand, or open a gym, or, you know, a sushi restaurant. That actually the people who are fighting on the ground know that this is always going to be a question of life and death. And taking Gaza is a really important psychological, not just simply strategic, that's important, but a psychological question for the Israelis. Because they say, well, why is Gaza like Gaza is? Has anyone ever wondered why? There was a disappearance, you know, the rest of the Palestinian population were pushed out everywhere. Why in this strip? Why in this strip did the Israelis not in 1948 push out the population of Gaza? Do we know? Because there was an Egyptian army. One particular section of the Egyptian army refused the orders to retreat. This section of the army was commanded by a young officer by the name of Gamal Abdel Nasser. Gamal Abdel Nasser was to then come on a few years later, throw the British out, nationalize the Suez Canal, and become one of the great heroes of the Arab world. That destroying Gaza will also wipe out that memory of what Gamal Abdel Nasser did, and it's quite an important psychological thing. So I want to talk then, if we talk about the Dahiya doctrine and the solidarity that took place in Lebanon, and now we need to project this not only inside Lebanon or inside the Arab world, but actually across the world, because there is a superpower, and that's the US. It has its allies, that's the European Union. It has also its rivals, Russia and China, and so on. But there's another superpower that I think a lot of us just beginning to see, and that is the global movement of solidarity. And this movement is actually much more fundamental and much more powerful. And you feel, and I've really felt it over the last few weeks, you feel the shaking of the buildings, you feel the shaking of the whole system that is taking place, the demonstrations, the huge demonstrations that are taking place, the way in which our friends and comrades in Black Lives Matter and Sister Uncut, Jews Against Genocide, completely demolished this idea that this is some kind of religious war, there's some kind of form of anti-Semitism. These demonstrations are really, really vital. I know you could go from demonstration to demonstration, but I tell you what, every one of these demonstrations is being beamed into 200 million Arab homes. People are seeing it, and they're drawing two conclusions. One is, this is not a war between Arab and Jews. Secondly, we have the majority of the people around the world. And this term we use in the Arab world, we say the Arab street, meaning the ordinary people, and the West. There's the Arab street and there's the West. Now there's a different term. There's the Arab street and then there's the Western street. The Western street is different to the Western rulers. And we have this kind of solidarity. We have this solidarity. So when we talk about, where are the millions from the song? Where are the millions? We are the millions. We are the millions, we are the billions, we are the Palestinians. This is so vital because we are able to really shake the confidence and begin to destroy, if you like, this blanket carte blanche that's been given by Western powers to the Israeli strategy. The question of ceasefire becomes now really important. The question of ceasefire, I've met people who are just simply broken down in tears because they can't stand what they're seeing inside of Gaza. People are not political, absolutely gutted by what they're seeing. And the question of ceasefire becomes really, really important. Really, really important because if we get a ceasefire, if we get to force them to make a ceasefire, then we immediately, not only do we stop the destruction that's taking place in the south of Gaza, but actually we deliver a strategic defeat to the Israelis. This is why they say no ceasefire, and they won't use the word ceasefire, it's pause and various other things. Actually, so the question of ceasefire becomes really, really important, and it's something actually we can deliver, and that's the most we can do. And you begin to feel the pressure building. You really begin to feel the pressure. There's a second element of this I think is really important. If it's okay for a country to ignore international law over genocide, over the bombing of civilians, over cutting of water and food, then why the hell should we accept laws over when we demonstrate? Why the hell should we accept anti-trade union laws? Why the hell should we say, oh, we shouldn't be walking out of our schools, we shouldn't be walking out of our colleges, it's against the law. They've broken the biggest law there is. So we're not going to, we now no longer respect your laws. And this is, if you like, the call, I think, that we need to take out. Audace, I think the French call it, audacity. So actually we need to take this. We really feel the sense in which this alliance is shaking. You really get the sense in which their carte blanche is beginning to fall apart. And you really get the sense in which actually we can deliver something real to the Palestinian people. And that's really important. And so then coming to the question of the Arab revolutions, let's not talk about the Arab revolutions. Let's talk about the global working class in which one part of it speaks Arabic. And it's in Algeria, and it's in Morocco, and it's in Saudi Arabia, and it's Kuwait, it's in Lebanon, and it's all over the place. There's nothing specific about it. But I want to talk about two cities. That'll be my final thing, promise. which is Suez, the city of Suez, which is on the southern point of the Suez Canal, and the city of Port Said, which is on the Mediterranean side of the Suez Canal. Egypt is the biggest Arab country, has the biggest working class in the region. It's like a huge. So both Suez and Port Said have the highest concentration of industry, of industrial workers in the Arab world, in these two cities. And they're either side of the Suez Canal. So when we talk about the upcoming, maybe tomorrow, who knows, a new revolutionary wave that emerges in Egypt, these two cities become really, really crucial. Because not only were they very crucial in the 2011 uprisings, mass strikes in Port Said and Suez were the final straw for the Mubarak regime, that actually the Arab rulers are terrified of what's happening now inside of these cities. There's international solidarity is giving confidence to those on the ground, but the international solidarity also has to be about blocking ports, about walking out of schools, about closing down streets, and actually we're going to make this country ungovernable. Actually, we're going to make the whole of Europe ungovernable. If you're going to do genocide, we're going to make this place very ungovernable. And so in that sense, the best solidarity we can provide towards the Palestinians is that exact solidarity. I'll leave it there. I'm going to start with an apology because I have 14 questions here. And so I'm going to try and jump through them as fast as I can. Now, what's happening in the Arab world? I don't know if people will take your mind back to the first week after when the Israelis launched their massive assault on Gaza. There was a demonstration that started in the main mosque in Cairo, Al-Azhar, very important mosque, very symbolic. It starts on this demonstration. It starts after Friday prayers. So then march, then builds very, very quickly. What was interesting about it was that the riot police, who have a terrible life, to be honest with you, in Egypt. I don't usually sympathize with the riot police, but they're conscripted from the villages and they're forced to become riot police, and they're locked in these vans until they're released on people. Is the bang from the inside of the vans that the riot police wanted to join the demonstration. That was really clear. This demonstration then marches through Cairo and builds as it goes. And you're like, and where was it going? It was going to Tahrir Square. Well, Tahrir Square was the center of the Arab revolutions. This is the main, it's like Trafalgar Square, if you like, only bigger inside of Cairo. We haven't been in Tahrir Square since the military coup, 2013. This was the center of it. They managed to get to Tahrir Square, and it was an amazing moment. Fine, you know, all the old revolutions were taking pictures of themselves, were back in Tahrir, and so on. And we're thinking, okay, this is building. Then we start seeing in Jordan, biggest ever demonstrations in Jordanian history taking place. Biggest ever demonstrations. I mean, it's quite incredible. Jordan is very conservative. The regime there is extremely tough, especially on the Palestinians, and so on. Again, huge demonstrations. Demonstration tries to march to the Israeli border. It's actually really, really close. And they're met by, you know, the Arab security forces, and they're pushed back. And you felt just that sense in which something was about to happen. You see the huge demonstrations in Morocco and so on. Something's about to happen. The next week, people arrive for Friday prayers. All the mosques are closed. They're all surrounded by security police. And in the few days before, everyone they could identify that went on the march the week before was under arrest. So the fear, I think, inside of Egyptian regime is they are shaking. And there's a joke that goes around Egypt, which I'll share with you, obviously, which is, you know, there's huge tensions inside of the Egyptian military. They go, oh, what are these tensions about Palestine? About, you know, what are these tensions? Oh, it's like, you know, groups of officers fighting each other over who gets concessions for which petrol station. That there is this thing about the Arab regime and the way in which the military complex is part, and the military are part of the economy. The military are integrated inside of it, and it's very, very shaky. It is very, very shaky. The conditions that led to the 2011 uprisings are much worse today than they were then. The Egyptian economy is tanking. The huge amount of money that went into Egypt in order to boost, especially from the Gulf, in order to boost the regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the military dictator. This has all been spent. He spent it all on really ridiculous projects, trying to build a new capital city outside of Cairo, and so on. The Egyptian economy is tanking, and the Tunisian economy is also tanking, and so is the Moroccan economy. But there again, so the rest of the world's economies, there's not that much difference. So you really feel the tension. I don't know, to be honest with you, what's going to happen tomorrow. I absolutely don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what the pressure is like inside of Egypt, but it isn't quite the same as going on a march here. Going on a march here is very different to going on a march in Egypt, or going on a march in Lebanon for that matter. I'm absolutely terrified about what's going on. So we know the pressures there. We know the conditions that led to the 2011 uprising are there. But we also know something else. The uprisings in 2011 were spontaneous. They were beautiful. They were beautiful to watch. It really was an amazing moment in history. But actually, they failed. Why did they fail? Well, because there was a reliance on pushing reforms through the regimes. There was a reliance on voting in Islamist governments whose main priority was to simply replace the old regime hierarchy with their people. This was the thing about the Muslim Brotherhood. It wasn't that they wanted to change the conditions of the people on the ground. What they wanted was the rich sections of the Muslim Brotherhood simply to move over from the old Arab nationalist sections of the actually, that was a massive failure. That was a massive failure that led to these revolutions eventually collapsing. So actually, I think the next round of revolutions that will take place might start tomorrow, might start next week, might be a few more years, who knows, will be deeper than they were before, because we have the experience of 2011 now. We have the experience. I am from that generation that grew up in the Lebanese Civil War. We had no sense that anything, you couldn't even cross your street. Never mind that there'll be solidarity across, anywhere else in the Arab world. And when we started to try to rebuild the revolutionary left inside of Lebanon, small groups of people trying to discuss various things, getting inspiration from Seattle and social forums and the anti-war movement and so on. Now, when you speak to the Lebanese left, they've all been through 2011. They've all been through the 2019 war, and actually they're a much higher level than we were 20 years ago. So actually the intellectual level of the revolutionary left, if you like, of the revolutionary forces, I want to put it, is much more sharp, much more seasoned than we were going into 2011. So I think that's one of the first fundamental difference. The second thing I want to talk about is I'll talk about Al-Khar, I'll give you the address for Al-Khar, the US Embassy afterwards if you want. I'll have it on the map here. So if you, is the global solidarity movement with the Palestinians. I cannot emphasize it enough, how amazing it is to see. And, you know, I watch Al Jazeera, I watch a lot of the Arab channels, because I can't stand the BBC, and fuck me if I'm ever going to read The Guardian again, that's for sure. It's what they focus on. And it was really interesting, the huge Washington demonstration. What did the Arab news focus on? They focused on the American Indian segment. You know, the Native Americans dancing. They said, oh, look, everyone's wearing our colors. All the indigenous people are wearing our colors. Next shot, who's blocking the port in Portland to stop the ship going? So they show the demonstration inside, but more importantly, look at the Native Americans. They've gone in their canoes, and they did. They went in their canoes to block the, you know. And so then the next thing you say, oh, you know, and these are the Maoris. They do that, and they explain what the hacker is. This is the fighting talk of the Maoris. These people are on our side. And you really get the sense. Nowhere is it. Are they pulling up some sheikh from Qatar and go, this man's on our side? You know, no one's talking about this. You know, no one cares about these people in that sense. The global movement is so phenomenal and has shaped, I think, the way in which the perceptions on the Arab street it's really, really, really amazing to. It's really amazing to see. And so someone cracked a joke, which I thought was really funny, which was the only time you ever see the Greeks and the Turks agree on something is on Palestine. The other time you see a demonstration amongst the Turks and a demonstration amongst the Greeks, they wave the Palestinian flags. And it was like, it was the jokes, the only things Greeks and Turks will ever agree on. But actually, what the Palestinian flag has come to represent. The Palestinian flag has now come to represent all the oppressed of the earth. This is I think really this is important, and because it also shows the way in which this is taken into its heart. Because you know, to fly the Palestinian flag in Lebanon, you know, is a really dangerous thing to do. You'll get beaten up. You will get beaten up by the sectarians on the right and so on. But you see a wave of flags everywhere. You see Celtic Football Club, which is now the most famous football club in the Arab world, putting up, not only just putting up the flags and the banners, but then when they're told not to, they then put up even more. And this is the sense that we are all Palestinians is we are all part of the oppressed. We are all part of the, and this is what actually what brings it together, and how the way in which solidarity with the Palestinians has become solidarity amongst the oppressed people and against all oppression. I think that's a really amazing thing. I'm always reminded of the quote from Ben Gurion, who was the founder of Israel, who said, "Oh, you know, we'll get rid of the Palestinians. That's okay. Their children will forget, and their grandchildren will have no idea." And here we are, 3-4 generations later, and no one has forgotten. Actually, it's becoming stronger and stronger, to the extent that one of the American politicians who's been really exposed by this, one of the left politicians, said, "Oh, you know what's going to happen next year when we come to the election between Democrats? Oh, by next year, everyone will have forgotten about Palestine." Really? Do you think we're just going to simply forget about this genocide? Do we forget about the way in which Democrats, so-called progressive after Democrat, actually refused to call for a ceasefire, including Bernie Sanders, whose status in the Arab world has gone from hero to zero in a matter of days. And interestingly, his equivalent, Jeremy Corbyn, whose status has gone right back up. I mean, I almost feel sorry for Starmer and the Labour Party. I'm sure they felt they put a finish. I'm sure they felt they put an end to Corbyn and the Corbynistas and so on, and yet you see week after week hundreds of thousands coming out on the streets. It's really really phenomenal. To shut me up, are you? Because I've got a few more to do.
Yeah.
Okay. The coming war in South Lebanon. Yeah. yeah, it's coming, and there's no way you can be prepared for it. We don't. I mean, Hezbollah have 30,000 missiles, but we don't have anything to take an aircraft down. There's no way we can defend ourselves against what is coming, and we know it's coming again. All we can do is hope that there's enough of a worldwide solidarity movement to put some kind of restraint on it. And actually, there is an international solidarity movement that is beginning to put a strain on it. I was very heartened to find out that the chief of the Metropolitan Police is on our side. I saw a quote from him, which I thought was extraordinary when he was being interviewed, I think, on one of the radio stations. They said to him, what do you think of Suella Braverman's classification of these demonstrations as hate marches? He said, well, as far as I'm concerned, the Home Secretary has plucked 2 words out of the English language and put them together in a sentence. You feel the breaks, you feel the cracks that are taking place. This is us. This is what we've done. They thought they can simply give, the nod. The European Union, by the way, I don't ever hear the word European Union and progressive together in the same sentence ever again, right? I never want to hear that again. The European Union, Britain, the US, the West, just simply, nodding through whatever the Israelis want to do, whatever damage that they're doing inside of, that's okay. It's now no longer okay. And the more we push, the more the cracks are beginning to appear. And you begin to see, I think, Preston Mosque released a statement today. It said, we want every member of the Labour Council to come to the mosque and to explain to us what they're doing and at what point they're going to either call for a ceasefire or resign from the Labour Party. Like, whoa, okay, this is like, the pirate sending you a black spot, that you're actually, what we are doing is so crucial. It's so important. And this is a real solidarity that I think is going to make the difference. That's going to stop, hopefully, please, that will stop the war coming to South Lebanon, but also give the Palestinians some kind of breather, because there is something coming in Gaza, which I think is almost too horrific to think. Yesterday, they announced the first deaths through starvation. 12 people starved themselves to death. There's no food in Gaza. There's no electricity in Gaza. People are now dying of the smallest infection. Actually, this is a genocide that we are watching in real time, and that our governments and our Labour Party and Democrats and European Union and, to be honest with you, sections of the German left that should be absolutely fucking ashamed of themselves are standing up. And the Nakba, this second Nakba that's taking place, the second ethnic cleansing that's taking place, this is only, if they get away with this, then actually they will not simply attack South Lebanon, but they'll begin to bring into Europe, the European Nakba. And you see it already. On the week that the war on Gaza started, Der Spiegel, one of the most important German magazines, ran a story and said why we need to clear Germany of foreigners. Openly saying this now. A section of the German left, Die Linke, the darlings of the European left. Fantastic, lots of really, really good. A section of it breaks away from the party, makes a split. On what basis? There are too many immigrants inside of Germany. You see the Green Party, the progressives, running the flag of hanging the flag of the Israeli flag over their building. There is this. And then when you saw the first attempt of demonstrations inside of Germany, beaten savagely by the police, boots and knuckles and batons and so on, time after time after time again. And then you see the other thing. This is what happened last week in Germany. There's a fucking huge demonstration, not simply in Berlin, but also then in Stuttgart, then you saw it in Düsseldorf, and actually you see that there is this battle also taking place in Europe. France are trying to put a law through, which I will get 5 years in jail, €100,000 fine for standing up and saying these words to you. This is a law now passing through the French Senate. It's a scale. So if you say from the river to the sea, it's 50,000 and 2 years. If you say Israel doesn't have the right to exist, it's 5 years and 100,000. This is actually, and then you think, well, what's happening in France? You see the rise of the far right. What does that mean, the rise of the far right? Actually, it means a Nakba against the French Muslims, French black people. This is all coming. And you see in the US, something going through the Senate. What's that? To strip all Palestinian Americans of their citizenship. This is a Nakba that is spreading. It's not stopping in Palestine. This is why it's not simply crucial. It's not simply that we feel for the Palestinians. We do. It's coming to our streets in a real way, and this is really crucial, I think, for us to remember. And this period that we're in now, which I don't think I've ever seen before. People talk about the anti-war movement in 2003. I mean, I wasn't here, but people talk about it. But you know, we knew a year ahead. Actually, we knew a couple of years ahead something was coming. From 2009, we knew that we were going to invade Afghanistan. We knew that was coming. We had time to prepare. Really, the way in which it went from the first day, from the 7th to the 8th of October to that next week, the way this movement has grown inside this country and across the world has been absolutely phenomenal. And we're talking about, I think, the rise of revolutionary forces inside of Europe, inside of the world. These revolutionary forces are fantastic, rallying around the cry of ceasefire, absolutely important, strategically important, but also in terms of humanitarian. That's not enough. We need to build revolutionary parties, because when the battle comes, it's not simply about how many forces we have, but actually how we direct these forces, how we can maneuver the struggle that's coming. You want to learn the lessons of 2011? Revolutionary forces are not enough. Very important, they're not enough. You need revolutionary parties. That's why I also urge people to join the party. And can I finish on? Do I have
1 minute?
One minute. Just to finish, I just want to finish by insulting the 3 S's: Sweller, Starmer, and Sunak. These people have no right to exist in their positions. These people should be gone, really, in the next few weeks. Sweller Braverman, I think, is already out the door, pretty much. Yeah. Starmer looks like dead man walking. He, I think, didn't quite realize that by spilling the metaphorical blood of the left inside of Britain actually meant that he had to trudge through actual blood and filth. You see, the man is finished in my mind. And then there's Sunak, the man who I don't think cares anymore what position he's in. He's out anyway, and he's got his millions as he's got to go. The best act of solidarity would be to take each one of them out as we go. One out, that is, just in case there's anyone's listening. By that, of course, I mean remove them from their positions.
Yeah.
Anything else, I'll leave to the needs of the revolutionary forces on that question. And again, just a final word, which is, this is brilliant to see. It's really brilliant to see a huge meeting like this. It tells me something has shifted dramatically inside the world. And there is, I wrote an article, published an article recently in the Public Source in Lebanon about the coming dangers in the Mediterranean region. And this article was not about Israel or imperialism or anything. It was about this climate crisis that is about to descend upon us. And we saw the first glimpse of it in Libya, where the rains were so bad it washed away 20,000 people. That actually we face not simply the battle against imperialism, the battle against our rulers, but actually this is the final battle in lots of ways about whether we have a world in which we can hand over to our children. It's the battle, I think, that everyone needs to be part of now on every single front, and we need to be organized, I think, as part not only of revolutionary forces, but also in revolutionary organization.
Thank you.